This is Heal Your Mind, Heal Your Body with Dr. Schuyler. Discover how your thoughts manifest disease and what you can do about it. Here's your host, Dr. Schuyler.
Hi, I'm Dr. Schuyler, and welcome to Heal Your Mind, Heal Your Body. So I am a mind-body psychotherapist. So what is that? I specialize in the body's manifestation of stress, anxiety, depression, trauma, any sort of medical trauma, abuse, or even unexpressed emotions. So what is unexpressed emotions in the body and what's it called? It's actually called a psychosomatic disease or psychosomatic wellness. So what is psychosomatic? Psycho, not crazy, but just think mind. The mind, somatic, soma, body. So what I specialize in is the psychosomatic manifestation of your thoughts, the psychosomatic manifestation of disease. How I got into this was about 22 years ago. In 2002, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. And I was in a wheelchair. I was going blind and in and out of hospitals, in and out of having home healthcare nurses, hooked up to IVs all the time. And there was a defining point in my story, which I'll get into in later episodes, where I just was like, okay, I'm done. I'm done being sick. And I started to create this way of how to use the power of the mind to heal the body. Now, fast forward about 10 years, I was at a conference and I asked a colleague of mine, hey, how do I show the world, how do I teach people that you can use the power of the subconscious mind to heal the body? And he said to me, get a PhD and prove it. So I got a PhD. Here I am to start sharing my story. So I started working with pediatric populations and who had functional GI disorders or autoimmune disorders. After working with hundreds and hundreds of pediatric patients, I developed over the years these methods, these ways of how to define and how to describe exactly what the mind-body connection is and how you can use that to heal yourself. Now, fast forward to COVID, my daughter gets an autoimmune disease after COVID. She got arthritis of the spine and hips. So one day walking her to the bus stop, she had her cane and she's just sobbing, Mama, I can't do it. Mama, I can't do it. I'm in so much pain. I can't go to school. And walking home from the bus stop, I'm in utter despair, like the millions of parents out there. And I begin to cry myself. What do I do? It's like the sun was coming up over the sunrise at 6:30 in the morning. I was like, wait, I know how to do this. I help hundreds of pediatrics and adults. I've helped myself. We've been through the doctors. We've gone through testing, medication, one physician after another, and there's no answers. And it's like the dawn of the day, and like dawned on me, wait, I can get her through this. And that's how this book that I'm working on came to be. That's how this podcast came to be. How I can empower you all to help yourselves heal from autoimmune and GI disorders using the power of the mind. So this podcast was created to teach you all really complex neuroscience, but in easy to understand, applicable tools, understandings, and the way that you can use the mind-body connection. But what is the mind-body connection? I think that's a big missing element out there. And I like to think of it like if you imagine this pie, but you imagine the mind-body connection is just a slice of the pie. So you've got functional medicine is in the pie, heavy metals, toxin, nutrition is a really big part of it, the brain-gut connection, Western medicine, pharmaceuticals. But think of the mind-body as this one slice of pie, and it has about 7 or 8 unique ingredients. This podcast is going to go over teaching you what those 7 or 8 unique ingredients are that make up the mind-body connection. So when you think about it, we have 80 million people on the planet diagnosed with an autoimmune disease. That is more than cancer, diabetes, and heart disease all combined. 80 million people. So it's safe to say it's at epidemic levels. GI appointments are the number one appointments that people go see their physician for. So functional GI disorders are on the skyrocket. So this podcast, this Heal Your Mind, Heal Your Body, is going to be designed to teach you step by step the ingredients that are in this mind-body connection that is completely underserved and overlooked. So, what exactly is the mind-body connection? The best way to describe the mind-body connection is something called psychoneuroimmunology. Now, this was designed by a brilliant scientist named Candace Pert. She's long passed, but she is described as the grandmother of the mind-body connection, the grandmother of psychoneuroimmunology. So think of psycho as mind. So the brain is separate. The brain is something you do in brain scans. But think of the mind, thoughts and emotion. Psychoneuro, think of the central nervous system. Immunology, the immune system. So psychoneuroimmunology is what connects the mind-body. So we're going to break that down even more and think of it again like this is one of the ingredients in the slice of pie. This is the main ingredient in the slice of pie. So the body is composed of about 30 trillion cells, and that depending on whether you're male or female, but we'll just say for the sake of this, 30 trillion cells. We have roughly 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day. When I work with autoimmune and GI patients, it is very, very safe to say that 30 to 40 of those 1,000 thoughts a day are negative. An automatic negative thought, an ant, or a negative core belief. So whenever we have these thoughts, we create an emotion. So let's say 40,000 thoughts a day, 80,000 thoughts a day, but half of them are negative, create an emotion. Emotions are molecules of emotion. You have thousands of molecules of emotion that infiltrate the 30 trillion cells in the body. So you have 40,000 negative thoughts a day. You have thousands of molecules of emotion drifting down, infiltrating the 30 trillion cells in your body. Every moment of every day, you are developing more cells in your bone marrow, in your brain. So every day you have these repetitive thoughts. Your body is having a thought. Your mind's having a thought. It's creating an emotion. The emotion is dispersing throughout the 30 trillion cells, and emotions are the peptides that bind cells together. So emotions are literally the glue that combine the mind and the body. So the basics for psychoneuroimmunology, the basics for the mind-body connection are thoughts and emotions. The best way to kind of think of this is we have these automatic negative thoughts. These thoughts that are deep in our subconscious mind that we don't really think about, that kind of come up. I'm not good enough. I hate myself. I'll never get it right. I'm stupid. I'm not skinny enough. So these ants, these automatic negative thoughts come marching out of the brain, and then the mind attaches an emotion to it, and it drifts to the 30 trillion cells. So it's really safe to say that the body is the subconscious mind. And the body is a mirror of our thoughts and our emotions. And whenever I meet someone and they're a patient and I'm doing an assessment, I say, I understand there's trauma. Talk therapists are fantastic, but just tell me where your symptoms are. Are your symptoms above the diaphragm or your symptoms below the diaphragm? Where they tell me their symptoms are, I can tell what limbic response they're in based on something called the polyvagal theory. So we have Candace Pert and polyvagal theory. So we're starting to merge what the ingredients are in this pie. And a really good example of this, and I've been following this story for years, but Celine Dion, she has stiff body syndrome, which is speculated to be a form of autoimmune disease. So in my world, when you consider my slice of the pie, I see it as a prolonged frozen response. And when I treat people with IBS and they have constipation or diarrhea. Constipation typically can be frozen. Diarrhea can be a flight response. Someone who has mast cell activation is typically in a fight response. Someone who has chronic palpitations is in a fight response. So what does this mean? When you have a thought, then you have an emotion linked to that. The molecules of emotion infiltrate the 30 trillion cells. We are in a chronic state of stress in modern society. It just is what it is. We just are in this busy state of stress, so our body thinks we're in this chronic war zone. Depending what your default limbic response is, fight, flight, or frozen, is how you're going to produce your thoughts and produce your emotions. So the mind-body connection is where your symptoms are is where the solution is. And we're going to get into all this. So what we're going to begin with understanding the mind-body connection, the psychoneuroimmunology, is understanding that thoughts create emotions, and emotions are the glue that connect our mind-body together. Now, in this pie, we've got the limbic system, which is really important for fight, flight, or frozen. The other ingredients in this pie are your automatic negative thoughts. Remember, there's 40 to 60,000 thoughts a day that infiltrates all the cells. Then you've got an attachment style. And these are things that no one's talking about that has such a significant impact on the mind-body connection and how psychosomatically we can create wellness, or in the wrong environment, we can create disease. So think about the attachment style. Attachment style is how we were raised by our caregivers, how we are with our romantic partner or our friendships, how we are with our own children. So when I was working with my daughter, I began to evaluate my own attachment style. Wow, is my attachment style impacting her health? Because if you have an incorrect attachment style, like it's disorganized or avoidant, and we'll get into all of this, it can seriously impact someone's health or well-being. Another thing we're going to get into in this ingredient over the course of this podcast is epigenetic transmission of trauma. So we know for 3 generations that trauma stores in our DNA and it's transmissible. Right now, it can be shown 3 generations. So this is another ingredient in the pie that we look at that manifests and creates more of a disease response. Now, we know autoimmune and GI disorders at epidemic level. COVID had a really big part of it. So wherever the start of it began, it could have been from a virus for GI, or it could have been autoimmune after COVID. But how your mind is processing these thoughts, these emotions, how it's influenced by the trauma of generations before you. Also something called stress contagion. Those that we spend time with we can catch their vibes. I call it catching vibes. So if you think of the culmination of these things that make up this slice of pie, the limbic system, the automatic negative thoughts, trauma passed down through generations, catching vibes from other people. This podcast will go over all these things. And the foundation, if you were to clear everything, starts with understanding what is a mind-body connection. It's emotions. Emotions are tied into all these ingredients. So what you take away from today, hopefully, is with this understanding how powerful emotions are going to play and all the ingredients are going to be in this mind-body connection pie. So when you look at building something from the ground up, like we're clearing away and understanding how much our thoughts influence our emotions, which influence the disease process, a psychosomatic manifestation. And this is their first tool. So the takeaway tool, if it feels safe and okay, and you'll hear me say this a lot, if it feels safe and okay, this is the first thing I do with all my patients. I have them keep track of their thoughts and start identifying what are these subconscious thoughts that are coming through, and you can start bringing awareness to it. Now, here's the caveat. When you start understanding what your thoughts are, to have no judgment for them. Please have some grace, because if you think to yourself, oh my gosh, I can't believe I just said that. Now you're thinking about thinking, you're beating yourself for thinking about thinking. So it's really important, and you think to yourself, oh my God, I'm so stupid. To have grace for yourself and not think, oh my God, I can't believe I said I'm so stupid. I said I'm so stupid. It's allowing these thoughts to come up, having an objective curiosity about them and placing no judgment on them. And simply allow yourself to discover with curiosity, what thoughts am I having that could actually be creating the disease process or creating the wellness process? So what I have my patients do is keep a journal for 2 to 3 days. So they'll keep this journal of these thoughts they'll start noticing that are coming up, and they'll start writing them down. And you'll see about 10 thoughts will become recurring out of the 30,000 negative thoughts. You'll see about 10 to 12 will start becoming recurring. And what I have them do is put a tally mark. Oh my God, I'm so stupid. Tally mark. Oh, I can't believe I did that. How could I be so dumb? Put a tally mark. Oh, I look so fat today. And you put a tally mark, you're going to realize there's sometimes 100 tally marks next to these thoughts. And you start gaining awareness of, wow, how many molecules of emotions have infiltrated 30 trillion cells that are impacting this disease process? Again, it's really backing into no judgment for the thoughts that you're having in this early stage of understanding what makes up this pie, this first ingredient. It's just simply observing with curiosity, what are my thoughts? And we'll get into later how to start changing the ants. But for now, it's just understanding how powerful they are and how powerful your emotions are infiltrating. And when you think about how powerful all these emotions are, you start to begin to realize, wait, I can change this. I can begin to deactivate the limbic system by changing my thoughts. And that's what we'll get into, having power over the thoughts. You become aware of them, you gain acceptance over them, and in time, you won't feel like a ship out in the storm with no captain. That's how the mind can work when you're in this disease process. I remember going through mine just feeling so helpless, utter despair, and having no control over how much my thoughts were impacting my disease process. And the stress of having the disease made me sicker. And the sicker I got, the more it kind of had this negative feedback loop. And one of the things I distinctly remember before I decided to heal, I was in Utah and I went for a walk. That's where I was diagnosed back in 2002, and just before the wheelchair. And I just fell to the ground, and there was this red sand all around me, and I'm just sobbing, and and the sand turned into mud because there was just so much, and I'm never going to get better. I imagined myself in a wheelchair, which later came true. I imagined my wheelchair was going to look like. I imagined no children. I was going to die early. There's all these horrible things. And I'm now have my hands like in the mud, and there's just mud on my clothes, on my hands, on my face, and I'm just sobbing. And I said, okay, God, I'll make you a deal. I'll do this. I have no other option. I get that I'm suffering, but this has to help one person. I'll do this. I'll go through this, but at least let it help one person. So this podcast comes from my personal suffering, how I healed myself, how I've helped hundreds of pediatric patients who have been on stomach transplant lists, people with autoimmune disease, how I created this formula to help with my own child. So this method that I developed comes from such a personal place, a clinical place, and a place as a mother, that I want to disseminate this information and empower as many people as I can, that there is something that you can do in addition to all that you're doing that's going to have such a profound effect on your health that you are not bound to be sick for the rest of your life. You can create psychosomatic wellness. It's possible. I was supposed to be dead by now. I'm not. I did 2 hours yoga this morning. My daughter 2 years ago on the bus stop with the cane is out volunteering for 10 hours today wearing platform shoes. She's on her road to recovery. This is the first stop. We've cleared the ground, and we're going to start building the foundation from here. If you go to the website, I'm going to every couple of weeks provide you guys free tips and downloads in addition to the podcast. This is where I just want to disseminate as much information as I can, helping any parents out there whose children have autoimmune, any loved ones who have autoimmune, or you yourself have autoimmune or GI disorder, that you'll start getting this information, what you can start doing. If you're a parent and you have a child with autoimmune disorder, I do have a book coming out that I'm trying to get out to empower you all, how you can start changing your vibes, your attachment style, and start helping your child. If you go to drskyler.net, you click on it, you'll start getting free tips and download. Promise not to bombard you. It's just really cool stuff to help you start gaining control over it. And I hope this information helps. And I really look forward to empowering you all. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. I feel so grateful you have listened to the end. When we begin to understand how our body manifests stress, trauma, depression, anxiety, and even unexpressed emotions, we then create a space, a bandwidth in our minds to begin to heal our bodies. Healing is a decision, and I am grateful for yours. Abundant blessings, Dr. Schuyler.
To learn more about the work Dr. Schuyler is doing, please visit drschuyler.net. That's drskYler.net. And remember to subscribe to this podcast wherever you like to listen.
Produced by Audivita Studios. Connect your voice to the world.